Hello YouTube and welcome to another Bucket List Gamers mini review. Today I am joined by not only Eddie,
Hello,
but also by Trevor, one of our friends that we met at the Odyssey Gaming Convention.
Hey, good to be here.
We are actually just about to record an episode of the podcast, but before we've jumped on and played a new game from Tesseract Games, and it's called Song of Rats. So we didn't really know what to expect from it, did we, with the name? Some of the games we get sent, you get a clue from the name. This one, not so much. We sort of looked at it and went, not sure what this is, but I'm sort of addicted to it. And I don't know if from the little playthrough we've just had, you guys can understand why.
I definitely can understand why you're addicted to it. It's a bit of an odd duck in terms of games that we're used to playing. A lot of the stuff that we play is very action-y, action-oriented, whereas this is just... There's action, but you don't directly take part in it. There's a bit of detachment, but the art style for me sells it, to be fair.
Oh, neat. Yeah, I'm a sucker for that kind of choice-based, try to run the numbers in my head and fail and just wing it. Big fan. So this is definitely my cup of tea.
To explain a little bit about it, you'll be able to see it at the minute. This will be me doing a playthrough and probably getting murdered 5 or 6 times in the space of this short video. It's, as Trevor said, a bit of a choose-your-own style game. So you are in the future, in space, by the look of it. There's not an awful lot given away in the storyline, is there, at the minute, which I think they're going to pad out as you play through it in the full version. But you're on a quest to find some sort of artifact that can save your village. And each phase, I suppose, it's classed as days, I think, isn't it? It's got like a days counter in the corner. You get a number of action points, which we think must be randomised. We couldn't see any sort of rationale as to whether you get 4 or 2 or 3 or 1. And you get a number of options presented on the screen as to what you can do. So it might be visit a merchant, it might be find a new weapon or find a new set of armour, it could be fight something, it could be certain things that are very ambiguous, so they're just called opportunity or loot or danger, and you have to spend all your action points to move on to the next day. Some areas you will want more action points because you've only got a couple and there's actually 2 or 3 things on there that you can do that will benefit you. Some of them you're just trying to burn through your action points and move on in the safest possible manner because all of the options are hell. I mean, the playthrough we've just done where Eddie was in charge, we got one screen and I don't think there was a single safe thing on it, and we had 4 action points, didn't we? So that was a bit of a tricky one to navigate. But it really appeals to me. It's almost roguelike, isn't it, in that all of the stuff is completely randomised and you build your stats up as you go through it, and every playthrough is different. But I just love these randomised, like, choose-your-own option games, and this one really appealed to me straight away. It's very hard, I would say. If the developers are listening, please put me in easy mode in when you release it, because I really struggled with it in certain areas. And it is, I think one of the things is once you get into a battle with something that will overpower you, you're almost certainly dead. They do way too much damage to you, and there is a runaway mechanic, but I've only ever had it work once out of all the times I've tried to use it, so I've just gradually been ground down and killed anyway. But yeah, Eddie, what did you think of it? I know you've said you liked the look of it. Would it be something you think you're going to pick up when it comes out?
Yeah, I definitely think it's something I'll look into. I think the thing for me is how vague it is in terms of it does give you that sort of feeling of being that character in that world, having sort of an idea of what's down each route, but not fully comprehending it, because there's sort of an ambiguity to the story from the character's perspective anyway, in terms of you've heard stories about what's out there in this labyrinthine mess that surrounds your little village, but you only sort of hear the horror stories and the fact that nobody returns from it. You're then thrown in and you're expected to make potentially life-altering decisions based on very little information. Like, a lot of it is just potential for loot or danger. Lovely. Care to specify what kind of danger? Not really. You're going to have to nip down there and find out what it is. And it's not dread in the Resident Evil, Silent Hill sort of dread where you know there's something around the corner. It's dread on how well you trust your decision-making skills and the underlying thought that the developer may be a bit of a rug pull at some point. You may be getting into sort of later on in the game where you're like, I've done this before, this little machine room here, I've done this hundreds of times, I know there's going to be nothing in here that can kill me. Like the one we just played with the water reservoir.
Yeah.
And it just said opportunity. Didn't say any danger, anything like that. And you sort of walk in and it's like, oh, there's things under the water. And, you know, you just go, of course there is. Of course there's things under the water. And, oh, look, it's a tentacle. That kind of thing. So I kind of get the feeling that you start trying to build a pattern in your head about how this maps out. And the developer will, at some point, pull a cheeky one on you and be like, you thought you'd played this before. Now here's a multi-limbed horror that's going to eat your face.
Yeah. What about you, Trevor? From a developer's perspective, what did you think to it?
I mean, you nailed it, I think, by just throwing out that it felt like a bit of a roguelike, and especially Eddie, that sensation that like, oh, I've done this room like 100 times. I'm gonna do it one more because I know it's safe. Is it gonna be like that's the meta game of it, the like roguelike mastery aspect feels like, because you were doing this, Jay, as you were playing, because you played it a bit before, right? Before we sat down and played, and you're like, this room's going to be safe. I know what this does. You started to build up some skill, and I mean, maybe that's why that playthrough went a little better than your earlier ones. Who knows?
Maybe, yeah.
But yeah.
It is. I think there is, like Eddie says, the potential for it to figuratively toss a coin in the background and decide what way it's going to go. So one of the rooms we went in, there was a broken robot, wasn't there? And it's like, do you want to fix it or do you just want to ignore it? And the couple of times before I played it, I fixed it and it did exactly what it did in our playthrough. It went off and gathered a load of loot for us and brought it back. But I wouldn't be surprised if either in this demo or in the full game, there's the opportunity for you to fix that robot and then it immediately turn on you and start attacking you. And it's probably the same opportunity, and when you decide what to do, I assume it does some sort of randomized coin flip in the background and just chooses which way you're going to go. Or you can choose the super safe route of completely ignore it and I'm not going to take any damage, but I'm not going to benefit from it either. And I think there's going to be a lot of that in the full game.
Yeah.
They'd be missing a trick if there wasn't. Like that feels like what this whole setup is for, right? Is the like, do you want to push your luck?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely building up to quite a vicious left hook. It's sort of just jabbing at you at the minute, and you're just sort of managing to block them, and you're thinking, do you know what? I'm getting the hang of this. And then it's just going to just haymaker, complete sock to the jaw. And it
I mean, that is sort of what happened to us in that run we've just finished.
Well, fair.
True.
We found a room that looked safe, and then some sort of android attacked us, and everything we'd fought previously did like 2 damage and had like about 10 health, and then this android had 30 health and did about 9 damage or something ridiculous. So it just wiped us out immediately. But it's just a genuinely interesting concept, and it's probably been done before, but for me, I just love, like Eddie said, the art style. I think they've nailed the appearance of it. It looks beautiful even in this early stage, and all the opening like intro video, Trevor, you were saying like the effects that they've put on it with the sort of CRT effect on it just looks stunning, doesn't it? To say it's pretty much still images, it looks really effective.
Yeah, that opening intro was like, as you were playing it, I was thinking it was the cross between the videos in Homeworld, like in the Homeworld series, the way it does all the story beats, and the aesthetic, this like 80s CRT aesthetic of like Alien, which is definitely a reference.
Yeah, it's very Alien-esque. It's very Geiger, isn't it? As you said, Eddie, when we were playing it, it's got all those things thrown into it. And I'm really looking forward to... I mean, it comes out on the 10th of March, or that's the planned release date. So there's a couple of months left yet as we record this before it comes out. But I'm just really looking forward to playing the full version and seeing how they take what's already there and expand it. Because if this is just a demo, and it's fairly... I mean, we didn't get to the end of it, did we? And it's fairly competent in what it does now. There's a lot of choices already in there, and I can only imagine they're going to add a load more. So it's one that I'm just really, really excited for. And if you're interested in it, it is on Steam. You can go and check it out. It's Song of Rats. You can go on there and find it and register your interest in it and see the little trailers and and gameplay footage, which obviously you will hopefully have been watching while we've been talking, if my new PC that has financially crippled me is capable of recording footage of it, which hopefully it is. You'll have been watching that while we've been talking. So yeah, any final thoughts on it before we round off this one?
I'd say definitely go out and support the developer, to be fair, because it has got an understanding of the source material about it. It's got the sort of fingerprints of someone that has an affection for that particular genre of psychological horror-y, very, very Aliens-esque. And I think the colour palette as well is a lot nicer than I was expecting it to be, because obviously CRT monitors, it's normally quite a vivid darkish green really against the black, whereas this was more a nice teal, which gave it a bit of a contrast to what you expect from CRT games and sort of set it apart in terms of art style. I thought it was a nicer sort of gradient of the detail in the stills that they had on the screen was just lent a bit more nuance because of the colour, but that's just me and being a bit geeky about pretty artwork, basically.
No, yeah, I hadn't thought about that. That it has that CRT aesthetic, but they're not the CRT colors that you'd expect, because it would have been too harsh if it was like orange and green. No, even you'd get what it was doing, but it would not be pleasant. And it was like pleasant. It was really, the art was ace. I mean, I hit wishlist on it like 6 minutes into the playthrough, so that's my thumbs up.
It's an endorsement there. So yeah, we've not been privy to the price that it's going to be when it comes out, but I've just been looking as a rough guide. So Tesseract have published a couple of other games. One doesn't look like it's fully out yet. The other one is only £1.69, and it's called Queen of Moths, and it looks terrifying. So I may have to spend £1.69 and check that out, and maybe torture Eddie with it next time we record in person. But this one, they are not publishing themselves. It's actually through a publisher called Salient Games, and the other game they've published recently was $13.99. So I don't think it's going to be bank-breakingly expensive or anything like that. It's probably going to be a nice reasonable price point. But yeah, once we find that out, we will probably update in a podcast episode or something, to listen out for that. But I think that's probably a good place to finish this off. Bottom line is, go and check it out, get it on your wish list like Trevor did, because it really does look fun. But until next time, I will say that's goodbye from me.
It's goodbye from me.
And from me.